Right, just before I go into the whole top-down, bottom-up communications and dealing with that side of things, I wanted to have a little vote. There's been a lot of discussion recently about the new Department for Energy and Climate Change work versus what DEFRA does, and the Act on CO2 campaign, for obvious reasons, is being looked at more at the climate change focus than anything else. And although I haven't got a green button or a red button for you guys to press, I wanted a bit of an ask the audience on whether you thought it best fitted within the new DEC or whether it should stay within DEFRA. So a quick show of hands as far as Act on CO2 for DEC. Quite a few. Okay, and for DEFRA? Oh, not many at all. That's interesting. I mean, really, the honest answer is Act on CO2 and climate change messages as a whole fit across government as they fit across all of the different areas that we've been discussing today. So wherever it does end up being managed, whether it is DEC or DEFRA, there will still always be elements of the Act on CO2 idea and those kind of messages across all the government departments, and that should happen. So I think we should really actively encourage that thinking process. So in this context, what are we talking about as far as top-down and bottom-up? Well, I'm looking from the top-down perspective on government communications, national campaigns, communicating policy out, and not much more going on than that. On bottom-up, we're looking more at public and communities working together to communicate different messages, be they national government messages or local government messages, and giving them that local meaning. So which works most effectively? Well, you've got the you'll do what I tell you on the left-hand side, or you've got the more collaborative, let's all work together. But I think as we've hinted at, as we've been talking across the day, it really is more of a top-down and bottom-up. How can these things work together to make a message and make climate change much more effective from a public point of view? This is an example of something the Think campaign work on. So you've got your policy on one side, pretty dry stuff, which is then transferred to the right with the young girl in the poster there, which then trickles down onto a community treatment, which is actually branding cars and putting the messages on cars. They do a lot of other work on a community level, but this is just one example of what can be done with a top-down campaign if you do it right. On Act on CO2, Act on CO2 is still a relatively young campaign, but we are doing work at the moment to try and engage communities and work with local authorities and stakeholders, got to speak faster, on what we can do together. And part of what we're doing is creating toolkits and collateral that can be used on a local level. So here you've got your policy on the left, you've got the national campaign on the right, and you've got an example of some of the collateral we're developing at the moment that stakeholders might be able to make use of. We've talked about dangers of conflicting messages, the different things, the different examples that we talked about today. It causes confusion amongst the public, and we need to try and avoid that kind of thing. And conclusions. So basically, I think we've already talked about the fact that really it's about everything working together rather than looking at things in separate entities. Obviously 10 minutes isn't necessarily enough time to go through the whole lot. Sometimes it can work apart, but really mainly in public sector communications, I'd say we really depend on both to get the message across. And if we can maintain consistency, locally, nationally, or even globally, as with the Earth Hour, I think really they're better together. Thank you.